All right, so this is an explanation of the homework from the Unit 11 review for the final exam. So, as you watch this, if you find that one confuses you, you should pause it, rewind it, and watch it again. Just let whoever's playing the video know to pause so that you can re-see the explanation, because obviously there's going to be lots of problems like these on your final exam and your post-test next week. So, 1 and 2, I hope you read carefully. It said classify by degree, and this was all about classifying. It wasn't factoring, it wasn't simplifying, it was classifying by degree and number of terms. So remember, degree is the highest exponent, and then we also have number of terms. So when I look at this, my highest exponent is 2, and a 2 would be a quadratic. Then when I look at the number of terms, there's 1, 2, 3, and I know that because addition and subtraction stop a term, so that's 1, it stops at addition, 2 stops at addition, 3, so there are 3 terms, which makes it a trinomial. So your final classification should be quadratic trinomial. Then the next one we look at, again, degree being the highest exponent. In this case, my highest exponent is 3, making it a cubic. And then we have to think about the number of terms, right? And there's 1, we stop at the addition or subtraction sign, 2. So since there's 2 terms, we call it a binomial, which means that this is a cubic binomial. The next problem, again, you should really be careful because there's an addition sign here, not multiplication. So that means we put in those 1s out in front and we distribute the 1s in. So when we distribute the 1 in, it doesn't change anything. So you have x squared plus 3x minus 1. This is a positive 1 being distributed in. So again, it stays the same. Then we need to combine our like terms. So x squared plus 4x squared, remembering that you take the symbol that's in front of it. There's an imaginary 1 here, so we can go ahead and write that in. 1 plus 4 gives me 5x squared. Then positive 3x. Oh, that's not a like term. Is there another x term anywhere? No, so then we can just go ahead and bring that down, remembering that it should always be highest exponent to lowest exponent to stay in standard form. So then we have a negative 1 here, and a like term to that would be the positive 2. So negative 1 plus 2 is positive 1. And again, this is in order from highest to lowest exponent with our constant at the end, so we're done. Because all we're doing right now is simplifying. We're not factoring. So then we look at the next one. Again, I see that there is a plus sign here, right? So that means we're distributing whatever's in front of them, which in these case, again, we're both positive 1s. So we have x to the 4th plus 3x squared plus 2 plus 2x to the 4th minus 3x squared plus 6. So I have an x to the 4th here and a positive 2x to the 4th, remembering that there's the imaginary 1 there. 1 plus 2 gives me 3. And again, because we're just combining like terms, our exponent stays the same. Then I would look for an exponent of 3 because that should come next, but I don't see one. So then I have an x squared and another x squared. So positive 3 minus 3 would be 0, which means they just cancel out. We don't even need to put that term. There is no single x term, so now we can just combine our constants. So positive 2 plus 6 gives me plus 8, and that is your final answer. Okay, so let's move this up. So when I look at number 5, this time be careful because it's a minus sign that's between it, right? So even though we're distributing a positive 1 into the first set, which keeps everything the same, so it stays 5x squared minus 2x plus 1, now we're distributing a negative 1, which changes the sign. So negative 1 times 7x is negative 7x. Negative 1 times positive 10 would be negative 10. And now again, we combined our like terms. I always look for my highest exponent first, which is the x squared. There's no like terms to it, so we'll just bring it down. The next one I see is a negative 2x, and its like term is a minus 7. So negative 2 minus 7 is negative 9. Just bring the x along. And then we have positive 1 minus 10 would be negative 9. It's in standard form because it's going from highest exponent to lowest, so we're all good. Okay, looking at the next one. Again, there's a minus sign here, right? So that means we're distributing the positive 1 into the front, which doesn't change anything. So 5x cubed plus 2x minus 4. But then we're distributing a negative 1 into the parentheses, which would give me negative 4x to the third. A negative 1 times positive 2 is negative 2x squared. A negative 1 times a negative 5, be very careful with that. So negative times a negative makes that a positive 5x. So, oops, sorry, you couldn't see that. So now we need to go ahead and combine our like terms, right? Highest exponent's 3, so we're going to combine our cubes together. So 5 minus 4 gives me a 1x cubed. But remember, we don't normally write the 1, so I'm just going to make it an x cubed. Then we have a positive 2x, but that's not the highest exponent. The next highest exponent I see is a negative 2x squared. Is there another x squared anywhere? No, so then we just bring that one down. So minus 2x squared, because remember, we want to put it in order from highest exponent to lowest. So then I can combine my 2x and my 5x, because this would be 3, 2, and then the exponent would be 1. Positive 2 and positive 5 would give me positive 7x. But then I have to realize that I still have this negative 4 here. It might not have a like term, but that constant still has to get brought down to be part of your final answer. All right, number 7. This one was a tricky one. But again, this is really just simplifying, so we really should just distribute, right? So we're going to do 5 times 2x, which is 10x. 5 times negative 3, which is negative 15. Then when we shift to our next one, we're distributing the negative 2 into the parentheses. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times positive 4 is negative 8. And then we get to another set of parentheses. So now we're distributing our positive 3. So positive 3 times 1 is positive 3. Positive 3 times negative 3x would be negative 9x. And now I can go ahead and combine my like terms. So I have a 10x minus 2x minus 9x. Well, 10 minus 2 is 8, and 8 minus 9 would be a negative 1x, which most of the time we just write as negative x. Then we have negative 15 minus 8 plus 3 that we have to combine. Well, negative 15 minus 8 would be negative 23, plus 3 would be negative 20. So it's negative x minus 20 as your final answer. Okay, so looking at number 8. This time there's no addition or subtraction at all, so really we're just distributing this negative x squared into the parentheses. Remember, when you multiply your coefficients, right? But you add your exponents. So this is like a negative 1, right? So negative 1 times negative 2 is a positive 2, but then I have to add my exponents. 2 plus 2 gives me x to the 4th. Then I need to do negative 1 times positive 1, which would be negative 1, x squared times x. Now remember, there's an exponent of 1 on this, so 2 plus 1 would be x to the 3rd. Then we do negative 1 times negative 3, which would give me a positive 3. There's no x's here, so that x squared just gets brought along. This would be an acceptable answer, but remember, in multiple choice, they don't ever put the coefficient of 1. So we can just rewrite that without the coefficient of 1 in front of the x cubed to be more accurate. All right, last two for the page. So now there's no addition or subtraction sign here, which means we're multiplying. And this specifically is distributing, right? Because there are multiple, this is like multiple distributions, right? We're distributing everything in the first parenthesis times everything in the second. So we're going to do 9x times 9x. Well, 9 times 9 is 81. And remember, again, we're multiplying. So these exponents of 1 we're adding. 1 plus 1 would give me x squared. Then 9x times negative 2 would be a negative 18x. Now I've distributed this to everything in the second parenthesis, so I move on to the next thing, which is my positive 2. So positive 2 times 9 would be positive 18x. Positive 2 times negative 2 would be negative 4. Now that I've distributed everything, we need to combine our like terms. So negative 18x plus 18x are my like terms. Negative 18 plus 18 is 0, so they cancel out. leaving us with 81x squared minus 4. And the last one for this page is number 10, which is very similar to the one we just did, because again, there's no symbol between them, which means multiplying, so we have to distribute. So 5 times 5 is 25, and again, remember we're adding exponents, so this would be 25x squared. 5 times positive 4 would be positive 20, and then the x comes along. Now again, this is a negative here, it's a minus sign, so be very careful. Negative 4 times 5 would be negative 20x, and negative 4 times positive 4 is negative 16. So now we can go ahead and combine our like terms in the middle, and we would have 25x squared minus 16 as our final answer. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and flip over to the back side, which continues on with this multiplication stuff. So be careful with this one, right? Because this one is squared, which means we really need to write it twice and then multiply, right? Because squaring means we're multiplying it by itself. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 14x is negative 14x. Negative 14 times x is negative 14x. Negative 14 times negative 14 would be positive 196. And then we can go ahead and combine our like terms. So we would get x squared, negative 14 minus 14. Be careful not to cancel that out. They're both negative, so it would be minus 28x plus 196. All right, let's look at number 12, which is basically the same way. It's squared, so that means we have to write it twice and then distribute. So 3x times 3x is 9x squared. 3x times 5 is plus 15x. 5 times 3x is plus 15x. And 5 times 5 is plus 25. Then we can combine our like terms. So we would have 9x squared plus 30x plus 25. Okay, number 13. Again, there's multiplication between them, so we're distributing. So we would do 3x times 2x. Well, 3 times 2 is 6. X times x is x squared. Then we would need to do 3x times positive 3, which is positive 9x. Negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. And negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. So we can go ahead and combine our like terms. So we would have 6x squared minus 1x, but I'm not going to write the 1. Minus 15. Next one, again, there's nothing between them, so we multiply. So x times 3x would be 3x squared. X times positive 5 is positive 5x. 2 times 3x is plus 6x. 2 times 5 is plus 10. Combined our like terms, we would have 3x squared plus 11x plus 10. Now the next one is a little bit more complicated because there are multiple terms in that third one, but it really is the same basic idea. Really, we just have to multiply because there's multiplication between these. But now I'm going to do x times 4x squared, which would be 4x to the third, because remember again, when you multiply, you have to add your exponents. So x times positive 3x would be positive 3x squared, and x times negative 5, because remember, you don't stop until you've distributed it to all. So now instead of distributing x to 2 things, we have to distribute it to 3 things. X times negative 5 would be negative 5x. Then we need to go ahead and distribute the negative 6. So negative 6 times 4 is negative 24x squared. Negative 6 times positive 3x, well, negative 6 times 3 is negative 18, and the x comes along. Negative 6 times 5 is positive 30. And then we can combine our like terms. Since there's no like terms to the cube, we just bring that down. But then we have a positive 3x squared minus 24, which would give us negative 21x squared. Negative 5 minus 18 would be negative 23x. And there is no like term to the 30, so we just bring that down. And again, being very conscious of the fact that my exponents go from highest to lowest. Okay? 16 is really the same way, right? We're going to distribute the 4x cubed to the x, which would give me 4x to the 4th. 4x cubed times 1 is plus 4x cubed. There's nothing else to distribute that to, so now I'm going to distribute the negative 6x. So negative 6x times x is negative 6x squared. Negative 6x times 1 is negative 6x. Now the difference here is this. There's still a positive 7 here that I need to distribute. So now I need to do positive 7 times x, which is positive 7x, and positive 7 times 1, which is positive 7. Then I can go ahead and combine my like terms. Well, there is no other fourth, there is no other third, there is no other squared, but these are like terms, so the other ones we can bring down. And then negative 6 plus 7 would be a positive 1x, so I'm just not going to write the 1, and then we can bring down the plus 7. All right, so you're going to stop this and then start the next one that explains the factoring.